Welcome to This Podcast is Making Me Thirsty, the number one destination for Seinfeld fans. This is Two Up and Two Down. Here's our producer, Chris, to start us off.
All right, everybody. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us for another episode of Two Up and Two Down. And today we're going to discuss Season 3's The Nose Job. So, Chris, let's start with you. What do you got for your first up?
Season 3, The Nose Job, Peter Melman, 16 million people watched this back in November of 91. You guys know the deal. 2 positives, 2 negatives, often hard for us, especially, well, it's hard for us anytime. So, again, we're going to use analysis here. First up, here we go. I'm gonna go the opening scene with Jerry and George at the newsstand. Sharona's great job. It just felt so New York, right? Jerry talking about how he met, Tawny with the crop circles, and then, obviously, crop circles. Why don't you buy something? I love that guy, the newspaper guy. I think Hirschfeld just always found the right guy, and it's the details in these shows that make it work, that make it so New York. But that opening scene, them, the spinach in George's teeth, and then obviously them discussing Audrey's big nose without even seeing her yet. So I think that was it was just great setup and great anticipation. It just left you wanting more. And then obviously they showed the flashback with Jerry and Tawny, which, man, after seeing that, you definitely want to see more. So great opening scene is my first up.
Yeah, Tawny Katane playing Isabel, her character. Thanks, Chris. Over to you, Tony. What do you got for your first up?
Yeah, R.I.P., right? Tawny was great with us. I agree totally. I wrote that down too. Crop circles. Why don't you buy something? Love the newsstand guy. Very New York episode. My first up is when Kramer and Elaine go to get the jacket from the landlord. I love the landlord, Roy Brocksmith. I believe Susan Doyle, who we also talked to, who played Audrey, I believe she told us a story about him, which I thought was fascinating. Great guy, great character. The way he just digs at Kramer. She used to yell and scream, just going off. I absolutely love it. Is your contention that Shakespeare was an imposter? Come back to bed, you big hairy ape, and bring the Danish. What does that even mean? I don't know. I love that guy. I think he's great. It's an early season 3 guest star who, they're always a little bit, I find them a little bit different for some reason. I love, what's his face from The Statue, who we talked to as well. These types of guys, just great casting even back then. To Harris' point, even the newsstand guy was great. But I love that scene. I don't know. I think Kramer and that guy play off each other really well. I just love that guy just keeps going on and on about Babs. And this is way before we meet Babs, right? But just good stuff there. I get a chuckle every time. And it's just one of those early 90s Seinfeld, WPIX scenes that'll just live in my head forever. It's the only way I can explain it. So that's my first up.
Great up, because I actually wrote that down as part of my notes too. Was the landlord describing Babs and that whole scene that you just went through. So yeah, excellent up there. Chris, over to you. What's your second up here?
How can you forget Nasty Woman? I mean, just incredible scene. I had that too here. Quite frankly, one of the best all time. It's funny. We talk about these early seasons with Kramer and Elaine. And they're really good together. And then that, as you analyze this show later years, them together, it just really dwindles. Sad to see. But you know what? And speaking of sad, I'm gonna do my next up. Friend of the show, Tawny Katane, of White Snake lore, the video. But say she did it, and she was just real. She was unique in the perspective that she wasn't the typical Jerry girlfriend. We know she dated him in real life, and that's how it was. Essentially, she got the gig, but really different from who Jerry typically dates, right? Like the quiet, reserved little blonde, or she was, the high boots and I swear Nelson, and I love that whole thing. And Jerry reading off the off the paper there with her. I enjoyed it, and again, Mr. Sentimentality here. I'll never forget she joined our program and her calling me that night saying, "Let's do the podcast," and we hopped up and we did it with her, and she was wonderful. So a lot of great stories, and everyone treated her great. I think she was overlooked in this kind of episode, but I think she did. She really brought it. And for someone with not a lot of acting chops, if you will, similar to Jerry, it was good to have them together. So for me, Tawny, second up.
Yeah, good points there, Chris. So Tony, over to you. What's your second up here?
No audition, right? If I recall correctly, she got that gig. But yeah, I mean that was unbelievable. Yeah, my second up is not. I'm not using Tawny. I'm using the scene she was in though, and it's the whole chess match, right? And really the first one is the one that I love more than I think they might have played it out in the second one. But the brain versus the penis. He wins till you're 40. Still wins at a blowout. I love that line. I feel like these early seasons they were trying weird different things. You didn't. They kind of got away from later on, but. Reminds me of the FBI shooting up Jerry in the baby shower with the cable stuff, like just these different kind of things they were doing. Jerry with the brain thing on his head always looked funny to me. And how do you look like a penis? He just put like that white helmet on his head, and the whole chess match, and great scene. I'm Nelson to O'Hara's point there. And, you can kind of relate to Jerry there. I have a feeling that might have been, he might have been in that situation a number of times, probably throughout his dating years there as the womanizer he came to be. So I get it, and I think it's a great little scene. Kind of depicts that whole thing. It's a very Woody Allen type scene, I think, and I think to that point, just to go a little further, I think George is still doing Woody Allen a little bit in this episode. The whole stuff O'Hara mentioned at the beginning. That was very Woody Allen. The nose, I can't think about the nose. I can think of the nose. He's not quite Larry David yet or George yet. So I'm just throwing that out there. But this whole episode is very, obviously about dating and that sort of thing and the superficiality of it. So, yeah, that's my second up.
Thanks, Tony. So now we're gonna do the downs, and back to you, Chris. What's your first one?
This is season 3. This is Melman. I mean, you put those two things together, it's hard to find downs. Let's be honest. One of our favorite writers, favorite minds with the favorite season, but this is what we do here. Gotta get nitpicky. I didn't like how it ended. I love the Kramer with Audrey and the Reggae Lounge stuff, and right when they walked out that door, I think the episode should have ended. That would have been the perfect ending. But the whole my nose, my kingdom for a nose. Nah, too much. Didn't need that last little line there. So for me, when things go a little too much, usually I want more, but I didn't need more here. So the kingdom for a nose line, first down.
Oh yeah, good point. Yeah, I could have just ended like you said with Kramer and Audrey walking out. So yeah, good point there. Tony, back to you. What's your first down?
Yeah, that was one of mine, and I totally agree with it. And I don't like the call back to when George is like, Elaine, shut up, the way she did it to him later on with the can't stop science stuff. They kind of brought that back too at the end, which I didn't love. And George is just like, Elaine, shut up. It kind of pulled it back. I didn't love the ending. I agree. Listen, my first down is going to be an odd one, but this is what we do here. Just on the rewatch, I was kind of looking for downs more as an analyst here, and this one just, I don't know. Elaine's apartment, the set design in Elaine's apartment, and I guess it's Audrey's apartment too, if I'm not mistaken, right? They're roommates. Is that what's going on here? But it's such an odd decor. It looks like an old lady lives there. If you look at this, look at the things on the walls, the carpeting, the furniture, everything about it does not scream a woman in her early 30s in New York City, single. It's very muted, and everything looks like antique stuff, and it's just the oddest apartment I've ever seen for Elaine. She's always had weird apartments throughout, especially early on. but at least they sort of had a little bit of quirkiness to her and stuff. The bedroom scene in the bus boy. I don't mind her bedroom there, the Buddy Holly poster and whatnot, but this scene, this living room is just very odd. I think they kind of missed the mark on this one. I don't know. I don't know if Azari is in charge there, but they're still trying to find their way, I guess. But it's an interesting down. I agree, but. So Howard mentioned there's not a lot to pull out of this for downs, content wise. So that's where I'm going. First down.
All right. Well, thank you, Tony. Yeah. So, Chris, back to you. What's your second down?
If I recall, I think that was the same apartment she lived in with Siobhan Fallon. I think Audrey is just staying there until she gets back.
I think you're right. It's very similar to it, and I don't like it then either, to be honest with you. But I think you're right. I think it is the same apartment.
Kramer had no issues going back there, clearly. But
well, yeah, Tina was the Siobhan.
Exactly. And again, I'm getting nitpicky here when you try to find things, but somehow the Kramer saved the day, and Audrey mentions, it was Kramer's doctor that helped me. Like, wait a minute, Kramer has a doctor? Not only does Kramer have a doctor, but he's a plastic surgeon. We know he's a Stephen Tobolowsky guy. What are we doing here? So that, again, when you're just trying to find like consistency, that one didn't add up because we know he didn't have a doctor, obviously, from watching the heart attack in earlier years. So that one was a little weird. Again, they probably didn't have to mention that. Kramer just kind of came to save the day. He didn't have to mention his doctor. But for me, little things. So that's my second down, I believe. Yep. Second? Yeah.
Yeah, no, a valid point there. So, Tony, what do you got for your second down there?
Yeah, it is a valid point. My second down, I'm sticking with Elaine here. I just think this is early. Obviously, we kind of touch on this a lot. Elaine doesn't have to carry the show, but I don't know. She's eavesdropping on George's conversation. She comes in and starts yelling at him about courage to get the nose job. She yells at Kramer earlier on. It's really all she does. And I don't love either of the scenes when she does it, to be honest with you. I think, I'm trying to find downs, and I thought Jerry did a lot. Obviously, early on, we're giving Jerry a lot. He kind of carries the episode with Tawny. You got George and the nose job back and forth. You got Kramer coming in and getting the woman and the landlord stuff. Elaine's not much left here, right? They kind of just pushed her along with like O'Hara just mentioned. The doctor. That's why I'll do this. She kept helping him out, but not wanting to. And the ending I didn't like with her either. So it's kind of a big, just Elaine down. Mainly around she didn't have enough to do, and what she did do, I didn't love. So I know it's a little bit weak, but that's where I'm going with my second down.
Yeah, that's a good point, Tony. Right. So this is season 3, and we're gonna wrap this up with the grades. And this is my favorite season for you guys to grade because this is right before Seinfeld starts to take off. It'd be before we get into season 4 and 5 where it's really great. So. A lot of great episodes in this season too. So I'm interested to hear what you got to say, Chris.
Well, I will say the show already took off, and I'll disagree with my partner there, Elaine. I thought she's defending her friend. Imagine coming in, telling her to get a nose job. Of course, she's going to yell at these jerks. I mean, she's a beautiful woman. We met Audrey, an unbelievable woman. Soft-spoken, and that's how she was in the show. Elaine was sticking up. And not only that, Elaine was in the scene you mentioned, was one of your favorite scenes of all time with, Babs, Kramer. So, again, I can't really knock her down too much. Kramer, the nose job line, that's Kramer, right? I mean, every time you watch it, I still laugh, even though I know it's coming, but it's that awkwardness. It's his honesty that just, again, I don't want to say relatable, but we all know someone like him, right? Or wish we knew someone like him. George, right? The Peter Jennings stuff, such a jerk. But him, like, even talking about with, he had the spinach in the thing, and how'd the interview go? How do you think? And I love that callback. Sorry, we're all full, oh, sure, Mr. Costanza. Tawny Katayan. Again, I think it was tight. I think 3 guest stars, right? Audrey, the landlord guy, and Tawny, obviously. I love that they kept it tight in those early years. Not a lot of downs, but it's Melman. I just like I said, I think it's tight. The opening scene alone really elevated this. The jacket scene. There's not a lot of waste, is what I'm trying to say here. And I'm struggling here trying to get my grade out, as you can see here. And it's Melman, and I'm sentimental. Yes, you know what? I have 2, but I'm going to go a little higher than I wanted to. I'm going to go B+ for the nose job. It's not quite A territory. I'm never turning it off. It's more of that, vintage New York kind of, even a little darkness with the nose job stuff, a little like Larry Charles in there. So, maybe he connected with Melman on this. It's interesting. I know Melman was a little tougher on this episode himself, but for me, I'm going to go B+.
All right, cool. Thank you, Chris. And Tony, over to you. Give us your grade, please.
Yeah, well, listen, hey, I know Howard loves this episode. I was expecting him to go a little higher, and he did. The sentimentality, I think, sunk in a little bit, like he said. So this episode, I wrote down 3 grades. I'm all over the map on this one, and for a lot of the things he just mentioned, I mean, you got classic Kramer. You just need a nose job, as mentioned. The chess match stuff I loved. I already mentioned the landlord. I'm a little bit more down in the lane, and this is season 3. Here's what I will say. When this aired live, it was a solid episode. I agree with O'Hara at all points. Watching this live when it came out, season 3, early 90s, New York, the whole thing, loved it. But on a rewatch here, 25 years later, as we're analyzing against everything else, and Schmid mentioned we love season 3, and I do love season 3. I put it up there against any season. But this is not a top season 3 episode. I mean, there's a lot of season 3 episodes better than this. It's not a bottom. I mean, it's not the dog, it's not the Stranded, which aren't bad per se, right? But Good Samaritan. These are ones I kind of lump it with. I don't lump it with the Pen. I don't lump it with the library. I don't lump it with the parking, the cafe, alternate side, the Red Dot, the Subway, the Pez dispenser. I mean, the boyfriend, obviously.
Those are AA pluses.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Those are AA pluses. I'm not there, so I got to drop it. So you dropped it to a B. You dropped it to a B plus. See, that's high for me. I can't even go that high. I'm between a B and even a little lower. I think sentimentality is pushing this up for me now as I'm talking it through. As I'm seeing a B- written down, I think that might be too low. One thing I will say that I think is a positive that I didn't even mention, the idea of the show was how a comedian gets his material, and this episode shows that perfectly. Both of Jerry's stand-ups are about the nose job stuff. He slips them both in perfectly mid-show, at the end of the show, the rhinoplasty. Listen, I'm talking myself up now. O'Hara's grades in my head. I love Melman. I love season 3. I can't go as high as Chris, but I will give it a B, which was the highest grade I wrote down. I'm going to give the nose job a clean, solid B.
No problem there. Yeah, B+ B for the nose job, which it is a solid episode. And like you guys said, season 3, a lot of A's, A+ in that, and that's why I suggest people not to overlook that early season. So great job and analysis there, guys, and we'll see everybody on our next episode. Thanks.